welcome back to another very exciting episode of D&D. It's a great intro, 10 out of 10 already. In our last session, Mechlaresh and Garish were approached by Keith in the middle of the night, who told Garish that he had been framed for a murder most foul during a botched break-in attempt by Keith. The group managed to track down the individual responsible for the murder, as well as capturing them, getting the loot they stole from the nobleman's estate back, and turn them into the authorities. And Keith once again visited late in the evening, approaching Garish and thanking him profusely, and as well as handing Garish a very interesting magical trinket, which Garish is now the proud owner of. Keith bid adieu, said he had signed on with a group of people who were actually leaving the city, planning on doing some more honest work for a change. The night,
Good for Keith.
yeah, the night greeted both of you. Of course, after the very mild interruption of Keith, disturbing Garish early in the evening, but sleep came very peacefully to both of you. And you wake in the morning, the sun's rays spilling in from the outside, kind of bringing with them a gentle warmth. You can hear from outside of your window kind of a murmur growing across the city, a kind of roiling excitement for the festivities, which are not today, but tomorrow. But there's sort of that built-up excitement that's going on. You can hear more people outside than any other day. You guys have stayed in this inn. But you wake up, and the day is yours.
Okay, I'm gonna do my normal routine and go out, find a table, and order some breakfast.
Problem comes to you rather quickly.
Just what I had yesterday is fine.
I certainly remember what that is, and it is brought to you exactly the same way that you had it the day prior.
Exactly.
Um, it's almost uncanny how much the meal is similar in its way. It seems as though everything here is prepared very like mechanically as to like order per order, where usually you're getting like different cuts of meat when you order things, but everything here is very proper.
Yeah, I'll say hi to Garish. Morning, Garish.
Morning.
Sleep well?
Well enough.
That's good. Any news from Keith?
Yeah, he'll be leaving the city.
Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get to say bye to him.
You might still have a chance. Not sure.
Well, if we see him, we'll see him. Um, what should we do today? I know I'm rather light on coins, and I'd love to stock up more on provisions before we continue down to Guiding Light.
We could look for some coin.
Yeah, I mean, Gloria, that the alchemist was looking for those specific herbs. We could try and go find those. I'm not sure how much we asked, or even if we did inquire, how much she would, perhaps pay us for them.
She said it would vary.
Yeah. It would depend on the quality, of course, but we have these containers that we could just store them in.
As you reach down and pull up the satchel, which contains all of the jars, and they kind of clink together on the inside as you reference them.
Yeah. Unless you know of anywhere else in the city where we could pick up a more profitable job.
Well, I would like to do something less dangerous for a change today.
Of course. Well, what would you like to do? I'll set the bag down and let the jars clink a little bit.
Looking for those herbs is hopefully not gonna get us into trouble.
Okay, yeah. Oh, do I remember where we would find them? I know I have written down what locale they're in, but
Well, if you recall correctly, the Sparial, she did not give you any particular directions towards. She said if you were to find any. The Bog Root, as its namesake, would be found in shallow pools of water.
oh, I actually do have it written down. It's bright orange. It's found in glades with standing or slow-moving water. And we're supposed to put those in the airtight jars, and the bog root is supposed to be kept wet.
Yeah.
So I guess we'd want to go to somewhere swampy. Do you know of anywhere, you know, nearby the city that we could go and check?
Do we have any mercenary insight on this?
Hmm. I would say because of your background and just wandering around the area, going to Griswold's mother's house and kind of getting reacquainted with it, I'll let you roll nature with advantage. You didn't pass by anywhere that would be considered very bog-like or with slow-moving or standing water in your travels. And that would lead you to believe that it would be a different direction than the one you traveled, probably east more than the western direction you passed before.
Okay.
We could ask around.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, just could I make a nature check just based off general topography that I know about the region, about which direction we could head in?
Could Mechlaresh do that? No,
No? Okay.
because that would not be any information that you would know.
Yeah, it's not a mountain. Got it. Okay, yeah. After I finish my meal, I'm gonna go over to the bartender and say, "Good morning.
Morning.
Um, you wouldn't happen to know where any bogs or marshes or anywhere with like a lot of standing water would be, do you?"
Let me think about that. Well, how far are you planning on going looking for this place?
Well, it depends how far we have to go, I suppose. I mean, within reason.
If you go a couple hours out of the city southeast, you might run into some marshlands there. It's thick woods go in that direction, and I hear it can be dangerous this time of year, especially with all the movements going on.
Hmm. Uh, what sort of dangers could we expect?
He kind of tilts his head to the side slightly, and then gestures with his thumb to the board behind you,
Of
which
course.
still has Alice's name on it, but her name has been crossed off, even though it's still atop with 13.
So it's just typically the Goblin Menace. There's no large nature, large animals, or anything out of the ordinary out there.
Well, if you go anywhere south of town, it's definitely going to be dangerous. There's going to be goblins.
Yeah. Well, we'll try and track eastward more and then head south if we can.
Well, if you kill any of the blighters, you can always come back.
Of course. And with that, I'm gonna just tip him a silver for his troubles.
He takes it and slides it off the counter. You hear a clink into a box below.
Thank you very much. And I'll just sort of,
Hey.
walk away.
If you he again gestures to the board, and about 5 names down, there's an empty space. And next to the empty space, there's the number 6, and then it continues down with more and more names, until it gets to about 4 at the bottom of the list. I still need a name for your group.
Oh shoot! Did we come up with a name?
Mech has full agency here.
Oh, we're Team Red Green, cause I'm red and he's green.
Right. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but I'll put it down.
Well, it sounds better in my tongue, and I'll say it in abyssal.
He goes up to the board and he starts to write team red and green, and he stops and he just writes red green down.
Okay.
Kind of shakes his head a little.
With that, I'll go back over to Garish and relay the information that southeast is sort of where the marshy, swampy area is. But we should be on the lookout for goblins while we're out there. I mean, it's as safe as any other job we've ever done.
I suppose.
I don't know. I'm feeling positive today that we can get out of here without us taking a bunch of arrows to the chest.
Just remember Mage Armor this time.
I'm gonna, sheepishly sort of like rub one arm and be like, yeah.
I'm glad we're on the internet so you couldn't see my face when you said that.
Okay, are you finished breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else you need to like prep before we head out of town? It said the barkeep said it was a few hours walk, so we could be traveling for a little while. I don't imagine we'll probably, aim to be back before dark if we can.
Can't think of anything I need.
Okay, I guess we'll go to the east gate because we'd like to track eastward first and then head south after a bit.
Well, there is an east gate,
Oh, is that in the Nobles District?
he says. No, the Nobles District is toward the western side of the city
Okay.
of Ravenshill. But you both exit the inn and make your way into the streets. And like I said before, the streets are a lot more crowded today. People seem to have a pep in their step, so to speak. And there's more people moving about with more agency and urgency than you're used to seeing, sort of the meandering people in this part of town. But you make your way through the streets toward the Fang Market. Once again, there's large tables that are out. There's small children. Some of the elderly seem to be working on crafts next to the tables. There's storefronts there selling varieties of foods that hit you with different smells of dried meats and roast chicken and freshly baked bread and sweets and all sorts of different smells that all kind of accost you at once. That kind of carnival fair food smell. People, of course, are selling their wares, fine silks and gemstones and rings and dresses and fancy clothes.
I'm gonna look excited for a second and reach for my money bag, and when I go to like lift it, it's gonna be much lighter than I expected, and then I'm just gonna like put it back and look a little sad.
But if there's something you like to do in the Fang Market, we can just push ahead.
I think I'm okay, unless Garish wants to buy something. I think we're pretty well stocked on things, though.
Yeah, I can't think of any weapons I need yet.
You continue to push through the streets. Now the crowd is kind of like flowing against the grain as you all move further and further away from the center of the city. Eventually, you make your way to these large gates that surround. Brain did the thing where it said everything backwards. Large stone walls surround a large metal gate that is letting through people, one group at a time, through. The guards notice the two of you, step back. Near two of the guards, there is a man, a human male, there with short brown hair and blue robes that seem to be hanging down quite far on his body. Maybe they're like maybe a size too big. And he as soon as the two of you enter the guy's line of sight, he immediately turns and looks at you through the crowd and just watches you as you walk toward the gate.
Do I notice anything like remarkable at him, or can I see that he's like staring at us? Is it like
Make an insight check.
yeah? Because I would like to know.
It doesn't look like he's suspicious of you, but he looks curious, as he's not looking like at your face or your features, but he's looking over you generally, as if he's looking at like what you're wearing, objects that you might have on you. His eyes linger on Garish for longer than they do you, and when they do that, you kind of turn and look, and you can tell that he's keeping an eye on like Garish's warhammer that's on his back.
Ooh.
But he's standing with the guards, and the guards are talking, and he turns and he continues whatever conversation he was having with the guards. And the guard waves you through. Like they don't stop you from leaving. They just wave
When we
you
get
through.
out of earshot, I'm gonna be like, that guy was really interested in your hammer.
Guess why you need to give it a paint job.
Well, you can always paint it red with goblins. And I think with that, we'll continue on out of the city.
I need to check and see what this does. Okay. I was reading somebody's feature to see if it was beneficial in this kind of outing. So, you guys can make a survival check to try to keep the path. Meclaresh, you can make yours with advantage because of your background. Very good rolls. You all make excellent time moving through and off the road. As the road cuts sharply southeast immediately, and you guys kind of head more east than south. You wander for a while through dense forests that begin to open up slightly as they get further away from the city and more towards the plains. You don't quite get to the plains, but you get to that point in the forest where it's not super dense. You can hear the sound of trickling water in the distance far to the south of you, and you kind of take that as a sign and head south, pushing through. Eventually you find a slow-moving stream that's just trickling southward from a northeastern direction from you. And you can go ahead and make some nature checks as you are kind of glancing around the area and looking at the different plants and stuff to see if anything matches the description of what you were given.
Woohoo!
Okay.
I see if the plants match.
Take care of Garish's roll first.
Yes.
Garish, as you kind of look around and survey the area, you notice that there's a handful of like bushes and plants that seem kind of out of place, and you go over to them and you knock them, and the whole thing moves, like almost as if it was like a tumbleweed, not attached, but it's got greenery on it. You get the impression that some of this might have been moved from elsewhere and moved into this area by the river, but for what purpose you can't ascertain. Meclaresh, you've managed to see just below the water's surface, just as one of the bends in the river cuts a segment away from the wall where it's kind of roots and like slicked mud wall there. You can see bits of white roots that kind of stretch outward from the base of the wall under the water.
Ooh, this could be Bog Root. Let me just double check.
You get the feeling that you might have found some bog root.
Yeah.
In this particular location, because
Oh,
of your role, you managed to find there's quite a lot of it here.
oh, very nice. Yeah, it says deep black roots. When washed, it turns white. So I'm guessing the water washing over it cleared it off. So yeah, I'm gonna say to Garish, hey, we hit the jackpot here. There's lots of bog roots. And with that, I'll oh, do I have a dagger that's not the dagger of spite? I don't. I don't want to use the dagger of spite for this, so I'm gonna use the short sword I have on me to hack some of the roots away.
Sure, not a problem. Make a. How much are you trying to get? Would be my question, because there's a lot of it here.
How much would fit in a container? Because we need to keep it wet.
I would say each one of those jars could hold about a pound of bog root if you kept it wet.
And yeah,
Like it would weigh about a pound afterwards.
I've got 4 containers. How much do you have, Garish? I think you also have 4.
I have 8.
Oh, you have 8. How much should we grab? Like, if I grab 2 pounds and you grab 4? Like, if I try and hack off 6 pounds?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll try and hack off 6 pounds.
Yeah, there's more than enough of it here for you to be able to get that amount. Make a survival check, just because. Generally, when you gather things, you need to make a survival check. So, yeah, with a 15, it's easy enough. There's a handful of roots where you cut them out, and it just kind of disintegrates as it's been left in the water for so long. But you eventually figure out what you're doing, and you cut off larger sections of the bog root. And you guys can manage to fill 6 vials worth.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just going to make sure there's enough water in them and seal them off.
Yeah, easy enough to do.
Sweet. So, 2 containers and then 2 bog roots.
I'd like to investigate that bush further.
Sure. Make an investigation check with advantage, because you did discover it. You can tell that at one time it was secured to either a larger plant or something bigger, but has had one good clean cut through the bottom of it. The place that you found it was kind of in between other brush that is affixed in place, so it looks like this was intentionally placed here. So it's like a line of bushes around the bank, but one of them in particular is just loose and free flowing, like someone had cut it and put it here.
Is there anything above me?
Looking at
Is the bush dead?
no, the bush is not attached to anything, but it's not dead yet, if that makes sense. It's still green.
Okay.
Looking above you, you see the canopy above you. The trees are still pretty dense here. You can see the sky kind of scanning through the branches. You see a squirrel hop from one branch to another, but nothing that seems to be out of place, other than it looks like everywhere else in the forest where you've decided to stop and look up.
What do you see, Garish? Is it something we should be concerned about?
Well, a squirrel couldn't have cut this like this.
You think someone's trying to hide something?
As the two of you are talking, you notice, Cherish, out of the corner of your eye, a similarly cut bit of brush is flowing downriver. Like it flows past you in the river, around the bend.
Must be coming from upriver.
Oh, do we want to check it out?
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. Do we want to try and go sneakily?
That might be wise. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna try and sneak up the river to see where this is coming from. Not
Okay.
in the river, but like
Yeah,
along the
they are on
bank.
the bank. Go ahead and make. I would like 2 separate checks from you all. I would like a stealth check, and I would also like a survival check, which Mekhlaresh can make hers with advantage.
I forgot about your disadvantage on stealth.
Noted. Okay. There's a point in your kind of wandering along the riverbank and trying to stay out of sight and unseen, where Mekhlaresh, you just kind of duck low and move underneath these thick branches of this tree that are kind of leaning over the riverbank, and you hear behind you a metallic clang as Garish has somehow managed to intertwine himself in the branches.
Is he like stuck?
Yeah, you're stuck. You're stuck in the branches as you were trying to push your way through. Mekhlaresh,
I'm
being a
gonna-
lot smaller in stature than you, and not heavily armored, was able to just kind of sneak through. But she didn't take into account your equipment.
I'm gonna go set about cutting Garish free, just sort of hacking up the branches off that are like pinning him in.
You start to do that, and Garish, you can move a little bit. You're not like immobilized, but you can't push forward more this way. But you notice that the branches that are leaning over the riverbank are supporting the riverbank below, and it's about a 5-foot drop down into the river from where you're standing. So if you were to simply cut the branches, Garish would likely fall into the river as it slid away.
Oh, so like the branches are reaching up from the tree down into the earth?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's kind of like, I use branches, but it's more like roots.
okay, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't hack through the roots. Um, can I try and try and push him back as much as I can, so we can find an alternate route of passage?
Yeah, you can. Garish can make a strength check with advantage to try to break out, to move backwards.
I'll do that. Strength or athletics?
You can do the athletics. Two things happen. The first thing is you manage to get out of the kind of root trap that's here. The second thing that happens is you hear a loud snap when you finally break free, and one of the branches, one of the roots gives way, and very suddenly you find yourself reaching out to try to grab something to not slip into the river. Give me another athletics check, please. Splash.
Oh, how deep is the river?
At this point, I'd say it's probably like maybe 6 feet deep. So like, you splash down, hit the bottom, and then kind of like pull yourself up on another root and have your head above the water. You're now completely drenched and soaked.
This looks like a job for 10-foot full champ.
I was gonna grab the rope out of my backpack and tie it off, so you'd have something to hoist yourself back onto the riverbank with.
Yeah, that would probably work better.
Yeah, maybe. I would like to do that.
Yeah,
Do I need to give you a check for that?
No, you don't have to give me a check to climb a rope.
Well, I was gonna say to tie it off properly, but yes.
No. It's not a problem. Between the roots that are there and just you assisting with the rope, it's easy enough for him to get back on shore on the opposite side of where the roots were really thick.
You
I'm
okay?
going to check my equipment.
It's all wet. Everything that you were carrying on you is now wet, and if that, I don't think you have anything on you that matters.
All your BBs.
You didn't lose anything. Nothing fell adrift and into the water. You keep your stuff pretty well done. Pretty well tied up in, in your backpack and stuff, and you didn't lose your backpack into the river looking for your stuff to see. Yeah, you're just going to need to dry off everything eventually.
Okay.
And,
Did you want to dry
until
off?
until you take the time to dry everything properly, anything that would start a fire can no longer start a fire.
Would you like to dry off now? I know moving around in wet clothes is no fun.
Not
And
while we're on the field.
okay, what time of day is it currently?
It's still, I'd say it's probably getting around noon-ish.
Okay. I guess we keep going north along the river a bit more.
Sure, kind of pushing your way to the river, trying to keep an eye out for these odd brush.
Have any more floated by?
One more floated by while you guys were kind of pursuing this strange bush wrangling. But eventually, when you get to a certain point, there's another like row of bushes that are kind of growing in a semicircle around the bank. And Garish manages to find one and dislodges it. And it just kind of like falls out. And ahead of you, you can see a small rise that kind of rises up over the earth a little bit. This is a little bit a ways from the river. So it's like a small hill that suddenly drops off. And on top of the hill, you see there is this distinct orange color that kind of like is caught by the sun.
It's just the color. It's not like we don't see a shape or anything. Is it like a glow of a light?
There's like a like almost a blanket of orange, like painted on the ground on top of this little rise. It's what you can kind of see from where you are. Because you guys are about maybe like 150 feet away.
I'm a little sneakier than you, Garish. Would you mind if I got a little closer on my own to try and take a look at what this is?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to sneak closer.
Okay. Slowly but surely, you push your way through trees, trying to keep an eye out on anything that might look suspicious or out of place. As you slowly creep towards this, you begin to make out finer shapes, and you can tell that this is a small bed of orange wildflowers that seem to have a almost cup-like shape to them.
Oh, okay. I thought my brain was like automatically, this is more sinister. This is, I wasn't even thinking this could be this burial. So would you describe it as a tulip-like flower that bends upwards, like cupped hands?
It's similar to that. Yes.
Well, I'd like to make a nature check.
It's a bit wider.
Okay.
But you get the impression that this is probably the plant that she was talking about. She described it almost exactly what you're seeing. Some of them vary in size, but
Yeah, I'll motion Garish forward.
Garish, as you've been waiting for Meklaresh, and it takes her some time to like work up the courage, and you watch her move through the trees. Give me a perception check as you've just kind of been keeping watch this entire time. You've been in forests a lot, and this particular area is a little bit more clear than you're comfortable with. And you can see sections of it that have brush where you don't think brush should be.
I'm going to signal Mekleresh to stop.
All right, I'm going to stop what I'm doing because I haven't, gotten any closer to it. And I'm just going to like shrug my shoulders and give him like the what's going on look. And then like sort of gesture from me and point at Garish like, should I go to you?
Yeah, we should back up. This may be a trap.
Okay, yeah. I'll try and sneak back to Garish.
Sure, make a stealth check. Okay.
Once I get there, I'm going to whisper, "What's going on?"
You hold on.
Okay.
You did roll a 6. I'm going to address that. You take a few steps forward from the kind of small field of wildflowers here, and you hear a cracking sound behind you. And you turn reactively to face it, and as you do so, you shoulder check a tree that's next to you. And at first you're like, why didn't that hurt? And then you hear the tree come tumbling down, as if it was barely even attached in the first place.
I knocked over a tree?
Yeah, you knocked over a tree.
I know I'm clumsy, but holy cow.
You're shocked for a moment, and you turn and look at it, and you can tell that someone had clean cut through it, and it would have just taken a small nudge to knock it over.
Huh.
And with that large crash, you hear the twang of arrows.
Oh no. Why always arrows?
Go ahead. Let me just go ahead and set things up here.
And I didn't even put on mage armor.
Have to readjust the scene a bit.
Because I knocked over a tree.
There we go. I guess you were at the bottom of the map. So Mekleresh.
Yeah.
Well, let's roll initiative. I need to do this properly. So we have Mekleresh on 16. Garish on 21. Now, Garish, you cannot be surprised if I am correct.
Yep.
Okay, so you are likely to win initiative here. Let me check. That is correct. So, Garish, you immediately get a flash in your mind from your attuned dagger of warning, and you know that something bad is about to happen. And as you get that twang and the tree crashes down, you look up and the brush far across from you, closer to Mekleresh, begins to rustle and move. And you see several goblins pop out, as well as two much taller, larger goblins who look like they have a much stockier build. with thick, large red beards and flaming red hair, wearing finer armaments than the other goblins. One of them points with a longsword at Mekleresh, and they get ready to fire. You have your turn.
I'm going to dash to zoom up in front of Mekleresh.
You can definitely make it there in time. You still have your bonus action if there's anything else you'd like to do.
No.
As a small note here, a red dot denotes that they are wielding a bow or a ranged weapon of some kind, and a yellow dot means that they are holding a melee weapon. So you guys can tell what they're armed with.
Okay. Are the larger ones actively wielding their ranged weapons right now, I'm guessing?
Oh
wait, one pointed their sword at me, so...
Yeah, this one here has his longsword drawn. And this ridge that you guys are next to is about a 10-foot drop down. As the terrain drops sharply here and here. Anyways, that's going to change what they're going to do. So they all moved into position. Garish, I'm going to come at you really fast with attack rolls. I just need to hear a yes or no. I got a 13.
No.
A 14.
No.
And natural 20.
Yes.
Take 9 points of piercing damage as one of the arrows strikes true. The other ones, one of them you managed to deflect with your armor, and you reach up and grab another one out of the air with your gauntlet. And then you kind of break it and shatter it on impact as it barely misses Mekleresh. The other tall goblin is going to take a shot with his longbow. Mekleresh, a 9 versus your armor class.
No, that's a miss.
The arrow shot goes wide as it says something very guttural in a language you do not understand. Garish, you hear the guttural tone, but in your head, you understand it to mean, kill them, leave none of them alive, for the glory of the White One. That's from the longsword boy here. Mekleresh, it is your action. I'm sorry, you were surprised. I did skip you for your surprise. You're no longer surprised. I'm going to take us back to Garish. It is your turn.
Will this fallen tree provide cover?
Yes. It will provide cover from that side, but most of the bow guys are closer to your side. But you also have a cliff side to work with. That's why they all fired with basically disadvantage.
Yeah, I was thinking over here.
Actually, Garrett, I take that damage back. You only took 3 points of damage because it wasn't a crit.
Oh.
I forgot that they're firing at disadvantage because they're firing uphill at you, and you have partial cover from the raise.
I need to figure out which of my ranged weapons is best. What does the loading tag on a weapon mean?
Let me look. Whenever you, it essentially functions with your extra attack options, which I believe you have extra attack now at level 5. With the loading option, you
Oh, I thought we were
cannot.
still level 4.
Are you a level
Yeah,
4?
we're level
Yeah,
4.
sorry. Yeah, you guys are level 4. When you get to level 5, it means that you can't take the extra attack with it. You can only make one attack with a loading weapon per turn, unless you have a feat.
Would it take my action to move Meklarash with me?
Um, I would say that you can move her with you, but it will consume. It'll be like moving through difficult terrain to move both of you. But she does go after you do. So I just had the turns messed up there. That it's you,
Yeah,
her, and then them.
I'd like to get behind this tree
Okay,
and then fire with heavy crossbow at this goblin.
go for it. Wow. You dash, hop over the tree, and in one smooth motion grab the crossbow, aim it with both hands, and fire, and it fires straight through the goblin's head, drops them instantly.
Very nice. For anyone watching, my cat's token is here. She's not currently summoned, though. She's in her little dimension space.
Just move them to the edge of the screen there. I just move all of your tokens together when I put them on new maps.
Oh, it makes sense.
Anything else you'd like to do, Garish?
Nope.
Okay. Meklarash, it's your turn.
Okay. So these two boyos don't have ranged weapons.
No, they appear to be wielding chunks of hewn iron with bits of leather wrapped around a handle.
Okay. I'm going to cast Magic Missile as a first level. And one bolt is going here. One bolt is going here. And one bolt is going here.
Sure.
I clicked it.
There
There
it
we
goes. Alright, so that's...
Oh, right. It didn't roll the... Did it roll the damage properly?
Yeah, it did. I have to do some stuff on my side.
Okay.
So
it took forever, so it rolled twice accidentally.
you score grievous wounds against all of them, but none of them fall. As the missiles kind of disperse out and spread, and each one strikes each target.
And with that, I'm going to hop over the fallen tree
Great.
and just like duck myself down behind as much as I can.
I say if you go prone, you will have full cover.
Maybe I won't go prone, but
Okay.
I'll kneel down behind
So
it.
you'll have most cover. Got it.
Yep.
So it'll be their turn. This one can't see you. he's going to move to there. There is another volley of arrows towards Garish. None of them strike true. Your AC is higher than 14, I assume?
Yes.
All right. Using the cover to the most benefit, there's hails of arrows coming at you from basically the entire direction that you shielded yourself from, and none of them managed to strike you. You managed to evade all of them. It's one of those moments where like one of the arrows even whizzes over your head as you had just ducked down past. He is actually going to dash and get in melee with you. And this one is going to dash. Alright, and that'll bring us back to your turn, Garish.
I am going to attack with Hordebreaker at this guy.
Go for it. There's a satisfying crash as you smash Hordebreaker into him. He will take the 7 points of damage. As you slam him in the midsection, he lets out a cry of pain, and then his eyes lock with yours, and he says, more in that kind of guttural tongue, but you understand it to mean, oh, this will be fun.
I'd like to pushing attack that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and roll your D8 superiority dice damage. He does make his save, but does not live through the blow. So he did not end up saying that because you ended up crushing his ribs, his midsection in, and flinging him 15 feet off the side of the cliff.
I imagine he got like half of the word
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
As the hammer kept going.
Yeah. Yeah, you wheel and arc the Warhammer above your head and just slam him off the cliff. Still with your movement and your bonus action?
I'd like to move down here.
Yeah.
And action surge.
Oh, okay, yeah. From where you're attacking, you're go ahead and make the attack with disadvantage because of you're attacking in through the canopy of the tree there.
If I moved here, could I horde break them?
Yeah, because you're adjacent to both of them.
Okay.
You have to hit with the first strike. If you attack this one first, it will not be at disadvantage.
Okay, I'll do that.
But you can declare the horde break after the hit, which 9 will not hit.
Darn.
Man, that'd been some splattered gobos.
Yeah. Kind of ruined my Dragon Breath plan.
It's Meklaresh's turn.
Okay, seeing as Garish is now directly in my line of fire for a Dragon Breath, I'm going to disengage, and we're going to fire off another level 1 magic missile. As a note, which one of these two did I already attack?
You don't know because you ducked behind cover.
Gotcha. Does one look more haggard, like it's full of holes?
I'll let you make a medicine check as your bonus action to try to gauge them through the leaves.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. There's too much brush and tree in your way to tell.
Okay. Well, I'll just target the one closest to me, as well as these two goblins.
Sure.
I'm not getting the good rolls today.
That is 2 plus 1 plus 1. So both of those goblins die from your magic missile barrage. The other one is looking quite hurt. If that makes you feel better.
It does. And I only have my bonus action left, but I don't really have anything.
No, you have movement left, but no bonus action. Use your bonus action to make a medicine check.
I thought I used my movement to disengage.
No, if you want to disengage, you have to disengage as an action.
Oh, okay.
But you could have cast magic missile from where you were, so.
Well, that's true, but I did say. Okay.
You just rewind that a bit.
Yeah, I'll get back over here. So I have my movement left. I guess I'm just gonna get back like down behind the tree so that they have to, have a harder time shooting at me.
Okay. Well, the goblin you blasted with magic missile. Is going to stay. He will move forward. I am assuming that an 8 does not beat your armor class, Mekleresh.
It does not.
Okay, so he fires point blank and misses you somehow. As he's kind of shaking from all the horrifying pain you put him through.
Yeah, he's seeing double and just doesn't know how to compensate.
This one is going to dash. And this one is going to dash to get in range with Garish. Oh, wait, this one has a bow. Let me move him back.
Yeah.
A 21 against your armor class, Garish.
That hits.
Take 6 points of slashing damage as the small goblin in front of you tears open a section of your flesh along your legs, which causes you to stumble for a moment.
Superiority die can only be used once per round, right?
No. I believe you could parry as an action, or as a reaction, right?
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, you can go ahead and roll your parry dice then. Yeah, you take no damage from the strike, as you deftly parry away the blade, just in the nick of time. Your D8s have been very good to you this game.
They're very kind. They're much better than my D4s.
Yeah. But that'll bring us back to your turn, Garish.
Okay, I will attack this one.
Go for it. A 13 is not enough to hit. You swing, and he bends in just the right way to cause the hammer to deflect off of his armor. Is that it for you?
Yes.
Mekleresh.
Okay. Seeing Garish just sort of holding those two off. We're gonna do another level 1 magic missile. But the injured goblin is gonna get 1, and this one over here is gonna get 2.
Okay. And we'll
That's
take care
slightly
of
better.
both of them. Anything else you'd like to do?
Still have my movement, so yeah, I'm gonna move over here, then down to here with my movement. And I'm just gonna take out my short sword and have it at the ready in case they try to run away and they pass beside me.
Okay. Sure, no problem. Go ahead and take care of their turns now. A small goblin. See, and a miss. And that is going to be a 22 against your armor class, Garish.
Hit.
Take 12 points of slashing damage as it uses the goblin's attack in such a way to open you up to a particularly brutal strike.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to parry that.
Go ahead and reduce the damage by 1 to 11.
The D8s had to calm down.
The D8s giveth, the D8s give it, taketh away. But that will be the end of their turn. Actually, this goblin is going to bonus action disengage and move here.
Okay, and I don't get an attack of opportunity because disengaged that distance?
Nope. And that's because what goblins do.
Damn gobos.
Garish, it's your turn.
I'll attack this again.
Go for it. A 20 is going to be enough to hit, and you swing the warhammer with all of your might in a huge overhead swing, and you bring it crashing down, and the entire figure slumps, and when you pull your warhammer back up out of it, there's resistance as it has concaved his head kind of into his armor a bit.
Rip. I'm going to second wind.
No problem. Go ahead and roll your dice. Should really make that a button. It's a D10.
+4.
You're back 11 hit points. Just completely undo the damage I just did to you.
That's my turn.
Alright.
Wait. I'll move up to this guy.
Sure. You manage to get right up on him after you kind of steel yourself. Kind of clench your jaw and push forward. McLaresh?
Okay. He's just gonna disengage again, so it doesn't matter. But I'm gonna hop over here. And we're gonna shocking grasp him.
I say you do not have advantage. We'll take the left number.
They're the exact same.
But the 11 is
thought you
not
said he
high
was-
enough to hit.
I thought you said they were covered in like scraps of iron and
No, these are wearing
Leather.
leathers. The
Okay.
weapon is made of metal. It's like a jagged
Gotcha.
metal shard. But the 11, either way, is not going to hit.
bugger. Well, that's all I think I can do. I don't have many bonus action reactionary things I can do. So yeah, that's gonna be my turn.
It's going to take its sword and take a swipe at you, Mechlaresh. So you just tried to electrocute him. 11.
That's a tie.
In that case, you win the tie, as you barely manage to dodge out of the way as this wicked-looking thing comes slicing at you. Bring us to Garish.
Hammer time.
How would you like to do this?
I would like to slam it into the rock behind it.
You rear back after charging forward, seeing it attack make a swipe at your friend. You pull forward and you crash your hammer down, knocking it back, slamming it into the rock, sending bits of goblin flesh scattering across the rock. Take a few deep breaths, and it seems that the danger is behind you for now.
Oh, I'm so glad you have that dagger of warning. Sure is safe out here.
I think we can gather those plants now.
Yeah.
And the ears.
I was gonna say we could get some ears from any of the ones that still have heads. You were kind of proficient with Hordebreaker there.
It still has a head, it's just slightly inside of its chest cavity.
I don't know if I want to dig that out.
It's almost cartoonish how brutal the kill was.
If the ears are unrecognizable, I can just take the whole head.
A little more gruesome, but do you want to collect the ears first or the herbs first?
The ears are more likely to be difficult to find, so let's start with them.
Okay, yeah. We'll start chopping off some ears and seeing if the goblins had any notable, like if they had potions or anything useful on them.
Going through and looting and using small blades that you carry with you to carve the ears off, you manage to get 7 goblin ears, one from each goblin. 2 of them are slightly larger ears from the larger goblins, and have like kind of a fur growing on them. The regular small goblins that you're used to seeing don't have anything of worth on them. You find a satchel on one and you open it up and it's full of teeth. But again, they're using very ramshackle weapons. Their blades are little more than hewn bits of steel that maybe were pounded with rocks in order to make sharp blades. The 2 larger goblins, however, are wearing pretty well-made chainmail armor. The longswords they have, while crude, are pretty sturdily crafted. It doesn't look like junk. The one that had the longbow that was firing the longbow at you, the longbow appears to be made out of, it has impeccable make. It's a very beautiful weapon. And you can see on it where the weapon has been tarnished by these score marks in the weapon. There's 16 notches in it.
Or Garish, how much would you say we could get for this chainmail back in town? I'm just wondering if it's worth carrying back. It is a little heavy.
If I can carry it, I'll take it.
You're going to be pretty bogged down with the chainmail, and it'll slow you down a bit because chainmail is pretty heavy.
That's what I was thinking. Like,
Because it's not just like chainmail. There are segments of plate and bits of leather that attach the plates to the actual chain, as well as the cloth that's draped underneath, so the chainmail doesn't pinch your skin. But you'll be able to make it back, but you're at your limit with it. Anything more, and it's going to be almost impossible to move.
yeah, because I can take the longbow for sure, and possibly the longswords. Do the longswords look like you said they were crude? Do we feel like we could get anything for them in town?
You might be able to get a couple of gold pieces.
We can at least sell them for scrap somewhere.
Yeah, I'll try and like carry them somehow. I'll like strap them to both sides of my pack.
As you remove the chainmail armor from the larger goblins, you notice that it doesn't fit them very well.
Is it too big or too small?
One's too small, one's too big.
Might have stolen them from a gnome and a human.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
like,
imagine the
like,
tilted
like
weapons.
they're made for medium-sized creatures, but it looks like,
They're not fitted?
yeah, they're not fitted.
Okay.
And Garish picks up on that. Garish, you would definitely notice that that it's not fitted armor. It wasn't made for them.
Not that I wasn't paying attention, but how many goblin ears did we get?
7.
There were 7 goblins? Okay.
2 big ones.
Yeah, it was 5. 5 small ones and 2 big ones.
Yeah. Okay. So Garish is gonna take the chainmail, I'll take the long swords and longbow. And since Garish I'll just grab the ears as well. And then I guess we'll take a look and see how much of the the flower. I'm sure I get its name already. It's cylindrous?
Sparial.
Sparial.
As you turn to look back at the beautiful field of Sparial that now has a tree that crashed through the center of it and has been trampled by combat and creatures running through it. Go ahead and make a survival check to see how much you could salvage that you think are complete bulbs, which is what she requested. You get 1 container of good, clear, solid bulbs from the Sparial, and 1 container of not great bulbs, but might work. Everything else is just demolished by the battle.
Oh. Do the demolished ones look like they're like are there any seeds we could replant?
Any seeds that would be in them are like deep in the base of the bulb
Oh, because
itself.
they're bulbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're like tulips. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right, they'll recover with time. We only picked the flowers, right? We didn't take up the bulbs, or did she want the bulbs from underground?
No, she just wanted the flower.
Okay, good. That's fine. Hopefully, they got enough energy to regrow next season. Yeah. This was eventful. I'm ready to go home. Are you, Garish? Are you ready to go home, Garish?
Yep.
Okay, with that, I'm going to lead us back out the way we came.
If you did not have that background trait, they would be rolls now. But knowing the terrain, walking through it, and taking point of different landmarks that you've crossed, you take the long way back, going back the way you came, and then redoubling your steps. But it takes some time.
Could we fill up on Bog Root?
When we're back at the other spot? Yeah,
Yeah.
I can lead us back there.
Yeah, it's not a problem. You managed to find your way back to the kind of bend in the bank. And given some time and getting your shoes wet, Meclaresh, you can get back in there and get out enough Bog Root to fill the rest of your vials.
Okay, yeah, so I get 1 more container of Bog Root, which is another pound, and Garish gets, you have 3 more? So that's
Yes.
another 4 pounds of Bog Root.
Mm.
Bog Root, not Boog Root.
Boogrit. It's the noise
They-
frogs make.
I was gonna say, it's Bog Root covered in boogers.
Gross.
Well, I mean, it's already kind of gross.
It's when Groot is congested.
Okay, so, yeah, now that we've got all the containers filled, more Goblin Ears, we're going back to civilization.
Sure. You make your way back to Ravens Hill. It takes a few hours travel going back and forth, again the way you came, the long way, and you of course spent some time getting more Bog Root on the way back. The sun's still pretty high in the sky, but it's getting towards later-ish afternoon, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I imagine we have to get in line to get back in the city.
Luckily enough, the East Gate is not as popular as the North or the South Gate, so the line's not incredibly long. It does take about 40 minutes for each like section to go through. They send about 20 people through at a time. Unless there's a cart, and then they will check the cart and then let just the cart go and then do another 20 people. And as you approach the gate, you can see the robed man still there with the guards. And the guards wave you and Garish forward. Oh, I saw you two earlier today, the robed man replies.
Yeah, we were just out running our errand for the Alchemist Gloria.
Looks you up and down. Well,
We're covered in mud and blood.
Garish is still like dripping a little.
Yeah, he's very
It's like
wet.
occasional. Like it's mostly dried, but like you look like you jumped in a river with all of your armor on. Well, don't seem to be harboring anyone in your pack, so in you go.
Oh, thank you kindly. And I don't know. Do we feel like we have enough time to go back to the inn and change before we go to Gloria? Because I don't want to just show up soaking wet. Or maybe that would help sell the story more.
I think we should go right away just for item freshness.
Yeah. Plus, we never know, like the crowds, and she might be closing up shop for the festival. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, we're gonna go to the Alchemist Shop.
Sure, not a problem. You guys make your way back into town. Now the sun is kind of baking the water and the dampness off of you, Garish. You begin to feel a little bit better. You're still a little dirty, both of you. You guys have been digging around in mud and river water for at least an hour today. So, but you eventually make your way towards the Radiant Drop, and you can see that the Fang Market is a lot more lively now than it was this morning. There are people, enjoying, and there's that same like smell of fresh food being made. The crowd's a lot thicker, so it's a lot harder to see anything that's going on as you kind of just glance around the crowds as you push through. But you do find yourselves back out in front of the Radiant Drop.
Okay, I'm gonna kick my boots together and try and get as much mud off as I can. And then go inside.
You open the doors to the familiar, warm-lit interior. Gloria is sitting at the end behind the counter. Oh, welcome back. Please, what can I do for you? She kind of ushers the two of you inside.
Hello. I'm gonna take out my sealed containers.
Ah, the Bog Root that I asked for. Oh, and some Spariel. You two worked quite well together.
Oh, we try. The Spariel was being guarded by some goblins. So some of it's a little worse for wear, but we have some pristine.
She looks at each of the jars individually, and she sets one aside. She looks at the jar of the good Spariel bulbs that you grabbed, and she sets that to one side. She looks at the other one of like kind of half crushed Spariel bulbs, and flowers, and sets that to the other side. All right, well, let me see. We didn't agree on a price, but I did tell you it was negotiable, and by the quality and quantity, you've gotten me plenty of Bog Root. I'm willing to pay you 7 gold per jar.
Oh, excellent.
I think that's a good price.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic to me.
And for the Spariel, I'll give you 135 gold pieces for the fine Spariel, and 12 for the other.
Oh, You're the expert.
Of course. Lots of people need healing potions, and spare ale is hard to come by. Unfortunately, it really does need to be intact.
Yeah. Just to make a. How much was she charging per healing potion?
It's 50 gold
50 gold.
for the regular healing potions. She has 4 regular healing potions and 2 greater healing potions right now. She also has a plethora of different poultices and that sort of thing, as well as healer's kits.
I'm just gonna like sidebar with Garish really quick before we take payment. Do you think we could try and get 3 small healing potions for the fine spurial?
That would be a good trade. Yeah, let's try it.
Yeah. Did you want to try or should I?
I think you should.
Okay, I'm gonna turn around and put on my warmest smile and say, um, we'd love to trade the fine spurial directly for some healing potions if you're not too opposed to that.
I suppose.
Um,
I could give you. She thinks and looks like she's thinking for a long, good moment. I could give you 3 of the standard healing potions, as well as 10 gold pieces.
and is that for all the spurial, I'm assuming?
Yes.
That's most agreeable for us. And then 70 for the Bog Root, yes?
You have 10 jars?
Yes.
Yep.
Sounds fair to me.
Okay, with that, I'll make sure she already has them. So,
And
we'll just sort of wait.
she reaches up and she slides the stuff and behind the counter, and you watch as she opens a closet door, and inside the door is full of jars. You can see blue, like different colors of different plants that are inside the jars. You see one that's bright blue and one that's red, and you see one with only one sparial bulb in it. And she takes the jar of sparial and sets it up next to that one, and she messes around, and she pulls a crate out and sets it on the table, and takes the jars and puts them into the crate of the Bog Root. And as you are kind of watching her and just kind of waiting for your payment, you notice that inside the closet that's now open with all these jars and stuff, you do notice that there are lots of stones that are in there as well. Small rocks, things that look like gemstones. There's one that's like a cluster of what appears to be tiny crystals.
Kind of like a geode?
Not like a geode. It is kind of like amorphous and kind of rough in shape, but it looks like just like several fragments of crystals that are all like melded together. If that makes sense.
It doesn't look like she's trying to hide what's in the closet, right? Like I could just ask about it.
Yeah, no, not hiding. She's not hiding anything in there.
Just trying to make like some casual small talk. Be like, oh, do you collect stones as well?
There's lots of different stones that are used in potion brewing. She, kind of distracted by the question, she puts the last thing in the last thing of Bog Root in the thing, and she turns and she reaches out and she grabs a small red stone. She holds it out to you, and it is sort of looks like if you had taken the idea of fire, like kind of that red and orange, and with like streaks of yellows in it. And she holds the stone out to you. Like, this is a drake stone. It's used in making potions that will allow people to resist flames. There's all sorts of these, and she takes it and she puts it back. All sorts of different stones can be used in a variety of ways. You just need to know how to use them.
Have you ever heard of anything called Glass of the Gods?
Let's find out. She pauses and thinks. Well, I think I know what you're talking about. But I don't call it that. I haven't heard anyone call it that. It's called petrified lightning. And she goes and she grabs that cluster of the kind of amorphous shape of crystals, and she holds it out to you. This is what you are speaking of, I think.
Oh, what is this?
And as you kind of hold it and look, it looks like it's sand that has been kind of coalesced and has created this kind of crystalline structure. Generally, what happens is when lightning strikes sand or any suitable loose material, it will create crystals like these.
Oh, what is this used for in alchemy?
Well, it's used for a lot of variety of things. I use this one in particular to make some of my tonics and tinctures. It can be used to relieve pain, mostly. As well
Well,
as there's some noble women in the district that use it in their baths.
well, if we ever come across any, would you be interested in buying some?
Well, I think I've got a fine supply. I know some sailors on the coast who like to pick these up as trinkets and bring them to me.
Of course. Yes, I imagine sand is pretty easy to come by.
Well, as long as you stick to the western side, yes.
Of course, yes. Do I know what she's talking about when she says stick to the western side?
Of the continent, you
Okay.
assume. Or it's either the continent or the lake, which is more of a sea than a lake.
Okay, so I assume we get the gold and the potions.
Now she reaches up and she pulls down a small rack of the healing potions, and she pulls 3 of the 4 out, hands them to you, as well as a small satchel of gold.
Yeah. I'll just quickly peck out 35 of the gold and pass them to Garish. I'll take the other for myself. And I'll hold like 2 potions in one hand, 1 potion in the other, and I'm just gonna like mix them up behind my back. And just gonna whisper which hand it is to you, Cirque.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna go, okay, there's 2 in one hand and 1 in the other. Pick, Garish.
I'll take the one with 2.
No, left or right.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna reach out and hand over 2 healing
Yeah,
potions.
no, we're both healing potions. He did use one of his healing potions on you. Just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
But I was being playful.
Well, you two
I was
are.
being garish.
Well, you two are always welcome back. It might take me some time to make some more of the standard healing potions, but I should have some more in stock in the next coming weeks.
Of course. Is there anything else you need? I mean, we might be leaving town soon, but there's an
Oh,
errand.
there's a great many things I need, but unless you're going up to the Frostfell, I don't think you'd be able to help me much.
Sorry. My cat ran by and literally caught herself on my headphones and ripped them out of my computer.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, she's great. So I basically heard like there's a great many things she needs, but not many we could help her with.
She said unless you're going to the Frostfell, there's not much you can help her with.
I'm gonna I'm gonna turn and look at Garish like Frostfell.
I'm gonna turn and look at Cirque.
Well, the The Frostfell is the country that is north of Malia, which you've never been to. It is said to be a frozen wasteland, is how it's talked about here. But I would say you've not been in the extreme north of the Frostfell, but you've been in the southern reaches, and it's not nearly as bad as people say. I would say it's kind of the equivalent of Lake Colorado or North Dakota. Like, it gets really cold and very snowy in the winter in the very southern reaches, but it's not quite like deep North Canada levels of cold.
I don't imagine we'll be quite so far north for. Oh, I don't even know when we would get there. But what do you need in case we're ever there?
Can always use glacier blue. It's a blue plant with white flowers. The entire plant would be appreciated. Just one. I've got sort of a project I've been working on.
Should it be kept in any way, or is it okay if it dried? Should we try and transport it in soil?
Well, I'm most interested in the seeds, but I think the whole plant would be just fine.
Of course. If we're ever up that way, we'll try and procure some for you.
I hear it grows on mountainsides. But, as I have never been, I only have books that tell me these things.
Do I recall any flowers from near my village that would fit that description?
It doesn't get cold enough there
Okay.
for this particular plant, so I would say that you would not have run into this.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being open to do business. I know things are getting crazy with the festival coming up.
Yes, unfortunately for me, my business slows down a bit, but that's never necessarily a bad thing. Gives me more time to enjoy the sights. I'm very excited for tomorrow night.
Oh, what happens tomorrow night? This is my first time.
Oh, you've never been to a Midsummer Festival?
No.
Well, the town sends, well, most people in the town, other than guardsmen and anyone who may be too old or is fret with foolishness, but I still go. They go to the east to the lake, and they release lanterns over the lake. Kind of sending our prayers and wishes for the year to come.
Well, it sounds very pretty. I'll be sure to try and get there.
Of course, there's always the regular festivities tomorrow in the square. There's dancing and music and all sorts of things.
That sounds like a lovely time, and we could use a day off of slinging mud and fighting goblins.
She laughs a bit. Well, maybe I should have warned you that Bog Root can be a dirty job.
Well, you said it grew in the mud, so we kind of knew what we were getting into.
I suppose that's fair.
I guess we should go and get tidied up, because we're just making a mess of your store currently.
It's alright, I'll take care of it.
And with that, I will give her just like a little bow and sort of head out the door.
And she gives you a nod and a smile, and as you turn to leave, Garish watches her reach for a broom.
I will follow.
You
Right.
exit out into the Thang market. Again, busy. There's cacophony of different voices and people shouting over each other, trying to talk to those nearby.
I guess we're gonna head back to the inn, because I want to be dry, and I want to turn in these goblin ears so we don't have to carry around a bunch of gross goblin ears.
And then we can inspect the equipment we got, see if any of it is worth keeping.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I guess I'll go to the bartender and be like, "Hey, Team Red Green here to drop off some more goblins." I'll take out the tiny little bag of Goblin Ears.
He sighs at you,
He loves the name. It's great.
and then he looks a little surprised by the number that you set down, and he picks up one of the bigger ones that you cut off and says, "Huh, I had heard tell of hobgoblins. That's probably why they're so damn organized. 7 ears,
Oh.
70 gold." Reaches behind, you hear him pull out a box, and he sets it on the counter and counts out with his fingers through the gold and platinum pieces that are there. He sets down 70 gold. Takes the box,
Okay.
slides it back underneath the counter.
I'll quickly count out 35 and pass it off to Garish.
He walks behind the counter towards the board and begins to make the adjustments to the board.
We're at 13 now, right?
Yeah, he just erases Alice's name and writes yours in.
Get wrecked, Alice. Is there like a fireplace in my room where I could dry out? It would be better to change clothes.
Well, there is not a fireplace in your room. There's a fireplace in this room.
Yeah, but I don't want to just like hang my clothes in front of the hearth.
You do know that one of the side rooms in the inn is a washroom. There is a large wooden tub in there, and the water is changed out regularly.
Okay, yeah. Is there like a drying rack in my room, or is there like a drying rack in the washroom?
There's a drying rack in the washroom.
Okay, yeah. First thing, I guess I'll go to my room and change into my extra set of clothes, which I do have.
Yep. You sure have a change of clothes.
Yep. And then I'm gonna go to the washroom and just try and clean up my clothes as best I can.
No, it's not hard. There's a washboard and a basin on the side. It's easy enough for you to do.
What's Garish doing?
I'm gonna wipe down my armor.
It's a very practiced, very meditative thing for you to do. You've done many times, kind of thinking that you didn't want to have to fight anything today, and you did anyways.
My bad.
But your armor is cleaned up fairly well. Your clothes are dry now. I'm assuming you took your armor off, polished it, cleaned it up, put it back on after it was cleaned. And by the time you were done, it takes a couple hours for you to kind of meticulously go through each and every inch of your armor to make sure it's completely clean. Your clothes have dried out in that time. Your pack is a little damp still.
I'm gonna air it out while I inspect the chainmail.
The chainmail armor appears to be very worn. It's not brand new. You can't tell. You can't tell the craftsman of it. There's no maker's marks. It's just like generic chainmail. Bits of the leather have worn away in certain places. But you kind of inspecting it and cleaning it up a little bit, you think you could make some money off of it.
I'm gonna look at this satchel of teeth.
I didn't know you took the small
Yeah.
satchel of teeth.
I didn't hear that either.
It has 15 teeth in it. There's some that are like rounded, some that are pointed. It's a sack o' teeth.
That's why I'm writing it down now.
I guess I'll inspect the long swords and the impeccable longbow.
The longbow is very finely made. You're not sure the craftsmanship, as you're not a trained soldier like Garish is, but you can tell it's very finely made. It's got a lot of curves and intricate designs that are kind of carved into it to make these kind of swooping waves in it. Other than the kind of very hazardly cut out notches in the bow, it's very finely made.
Oh yeah, I guess I'll detect magic as well.
Sure. You don't detect any sense of magic on these objects.
Okay, yeah.
The longswords, it's one of those where they're functionally longswords. They're not fancy. They're very like plain. One of them has a chip out of one side of the blade. The other one is not. It's not the highest quality weapon you've seen. You've seen a lot of the weapons that Garish wields, and Garish wields some really nice stuff, whether it be very functional or very fancy, and this is more on the functional side of things.
Okay.
You think if you stabbed somebody with it would hurt.
Yeah. As evidenced by Garish's grievous wound earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we could definitely try and sell these in the morning. I mean, it'll be the festival, so maybe tomorrow's not the day to sell them. Imagine a lot of things are going to be closed.
We start to see it a little bit later in the evening. The sun is just now starting to come down when you guys are about done with these tasks. Garish probably a little longer than Meclaresh.
Yeah. Is there like a candle in my room that I could like use to like help dry my stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most of your stuff is dry. If you can, I imagine you probably hung it up
Yeah.
in your room. There's places for you to hang things in your room.
Okay, yeah. I just didn't want to
small
like leave my
hooks and-
clothes in a public place.
Yeah. And you can dry your stuff off. It's mainly just your boots. And probably like the bottoms of your trousers, your breeches.
Well, it doesn't hurt to wash the entire outfit because I've been wearing it for a while. Yeah, so I'm in like my fine clothes and I'm gonna go out for dinner. I'm looking extra fancy. They moved away from my table. They know it's mine. Oh, never mind. I'll go over to this table over here in the corner.
The little corner table, I forget's there.
Yep. And I'll just sort of like scope out the room while I wait for Garish to come out. And I'll just sort of wait for him to, like, I come out before him, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of like looking around the room.
Sure. Give me a perception check as you kind of glance through the different patrons, seeing what's going on. The general air of the room is pretty jovial. Most people are drinking, and there's a handful of people that are completely smashed at the table you normally sit at, drunkenly laughing, and there's conversations being held throughout the entire room. It's one of those things where it makes you kind of feel good to be in like kind of a space like this. Not super loud and like crazy crowds, but just you can feel the positive energy coming from the space. And you, as you kind of are glancing around the room, you catch a familiar face. I have her name in my notes.
Say, I could look up her name too, but it's, I forget which session note it is. Not 6. 7? Ivana? Is it Ivana? The drow?
Yeah, it's the drow lady.
Yeah, she only told me her first name.
I have so many pages here. None of them are helpful. Yeah, we'll go with Ivana until I have somebody correct me later.
No, if she glances over my direction, I'll wave.
No, she just seems to be looking at her spellbook, kind of penning some things, drinking wine again. She looks make an insight check as you kind of try to get her general demeanor. She's got sort of like a grin. She's almost trying to hide. She seems very pleased with herself.
Everyone's still keeping space around her.
Oh yeah, Like
Yeah.
there's a good wide berth around her.
I'm gonna walk up. I'm gonna sit down at her table. Be like, "Hello, Ivana. How are you?"
Ah, Mekoresh. It's a pleasure. I'm doing quite well.
Oh, I was gonna say you seem rather pleased today.
Yes, I took care of my problem. Well, part of my problem.
Oh, good. Did you manage to track down those people you were seeking?
I did. I did.
And I'm guessing you dispatched them in a most efficient manner.
Well, they will not be causing problems for me in the future, I would hope. I'll leave it at that.
That's good.
She.
So, are you celebrating?
I'm planning where I'm going next. At least that's my plan. And she dips her quill in the kind of sparkling ink that's next to her and begins to continue the rune she's drawing in her spellbook.
Well, I don't know if you're traveling on foot or not, or if you're interested in going there, but I'll be headed to Guiding Light in a few days. And we have a carriage if you're looking for travel.
I appreciate the offer, but to be honest with you, I'm likely going somewhere you cannot follow.
Oh,
Unless you like
I want.
dark places.
I'm not so familiar with dark places.
No, the underground is not for everyone.
Have I heard of the underground before?
I mean, she's referring to it as underground,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean,
I
in
I,
this con.
I would say make a history check. You've heard of the Underdark.
Okay.
You know that you've heard stories of horrifying creatures that dwell below. And from what little you know about drow, you know that that is where they're from. At least true drow. It's mainly stories that were you were told when you were younger to stop you from wandering into caves.
Yeah, yeah, that did a real good job. Um, well, um, I don't think we have any business there currently, but um, is there a particular entrance that you know of that is perhaps safer than others?
I know of a few, but to talk about them would to do their secret a disservice.
Of course, I won't pry any further.
So you head to Guiding Light.
Yes, we're looking for some answers to some mysteries, and we have something of a friend gave us that we need to deliver there.
What are these mysteries you're searching for?
Uh, Geez, I want to make an insight to see if she's just curious or if I should be suspicious of her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Make an insight check. It's one of those moments where you're kind of taken aback by her curiosity that you're unsure how to process it.
Okay.
Whether it be just she's so kind of like foreign to you that her facial expressions don't read anything to you in particular.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I myself am pursuing sort of an arcane pursuit of knowledge, to grow myself into a better wizard.
As
And
we all
I've been
should.
told, yeah, I've been told this is where I should go.
Hmm.
And well, Garish is also headed there. I'm not exactly certain why, my companion, but it's been our common goal for a while now.
Hmm. Well, you should always push yourself for the arcane. There's always more to learn. Of course, not all
Yes, very much.
paths everyone can take.
My path is slightly unique, and I'm just gonna grab a piece of vellum out of my backpack and
Hmm.
just in the ink, I'm just gonna etch. I'm just gonna write a few of like the opening statements in oh, I don't have my languages written down in primordial, and just be like, "This is the path I follow."
She looks at it curiously. Um, Interesting. Unfortunately, I do not understand whatever language that is in. Of course, I could cast a spell and read it, but that wouldn't give me more answers about it.
Yes, of course. Well, we all have our own paths. I'll just sort of tuck the page away.
So, are you looking for mentorship or are you looking for information?
More information than mentorship,
Oh,
but a mentor is never. I've mostly self-taught, honestly.
hmm. A mentor can be useful. There are many spells in this world that you will never learn on your own. But there are some spells you will only learn on your own.
Mm.
That being said, if information is what you're looking for, I would suggest the Grand Library in Malia. Of course, it's far into the desert in the Tabaxi lands, but it's a good place for information.
Oh, have you been there before?
I have visited once. Of course, I did not look like this at the time. They do not appreciate my kind there.
Oh, well, do they appreciate anyone? I'll sort of say that with like a half smirk.
They appreciate people who do favors for them. Of course, the Malian culture is odd. It's about family and relations and who you're related to. It matters less what you do, more who you were born to. Of course, they are well meaning. They've had a ceasefire in the war for many years now. We even heard about it below ground.
About the sorry?
The war.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I haven't heard too much about it myself.
Hmm.
I'm from a rather remote village.
I suppose that's fair. You could say I'm from somewhere remote as well.
I guess that's just one thing we share in common.
Hmm. Makaresh. If there's anything I can do to further your pursuits, feel free to ask. But I understand if you wish to go your own path.
Hmm. Well, uh, how much do I trust her?
It's up to you.
Yeah, I know. I'm sort of asking this to myself. Because I could show her the obsidian slab, but I don't know if she'd read it.
I would say before we go much further that it is very important to me that if you meet any people like me, you do not mention me to them.
Oh, are you in trouble with them?
Our society is very complicated to the people who live here. I am a survivor of my house, and there are those who wish me ill simply because I still live.
That's horrible.
Well, it's the way of things. But because I live, they are in dire jeopardy. All I would need to do would be to return and say what they have done, and their house would be burned instead.
It's very much different from the place I come from.
Hmm. So I would appreciate it.
Of course, I would wish you no harm.
Hmm.
You're one of the few people who actually talks to me out here.
Quite good at holding a conversation.
Thank you. I've been working at it.
She kind of raises her hand at the waitress and gestures for another glass.
I'll get one too.
Say, after a few moments, the waitress brings over another glass, and Ivana pours some of the wine from the bottle at her table into the glass and slides it over to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll take a drink.
It is not every day that someone would converse with anyone of my kind, so I appreciate your company.
Oh, and I appreciate yours. How much armor does Garish have left to clean?
I think he'd be about done now.
Yeah, you'd be about done.
Yeah, if you want to come out and join us for supper.
I'll sit at the same table and quietly eat.
I won't say anything to her.
She kind of like gives him the side eye when he sits down, but she doesn't object.
Ivana, this is Garish. Say hi, Garish. He doesn't talk much.
It's fair. They're better when they're like that.
What do you mean?
Again, our societies are very different. I think we can leave it at that.
I'll shrug and keep eating.
I'm gonna be like uncomfortable and just sort of like sit in silence and eat for a while.
So what, is he your servant?
No, he's my friend.
Friend, you keep a man as your friend?
Why not?
She chuckles to herself a bit. Things are very different up here.
What's it like to where you come from?
Well, the women of our tribe are generally our leaders. They are the ones who make the decisions. They are our warriors. Men are playthings.
Garish is no plaything. He's a very strong warrior.
I can tell. He's well armed.
Did you bring all your weapons with you to dinner?
She's seen him before.
Okay. I just assumed Garrus put all his armor back on when he was done polishing it. And
Oh,
came out for dinner
I'm
fully
sure he
loaded.
has his armor on. Like
Yeah.
that's very garish.
Well, that definitely sounds interesting.
No,
Where I'm from,
it's a different world. People will do many things to vie for the power among the houses, including destroy them. Of course,
is
if
there
no one can prove, then, well,
is there turmoil where you're from, or is it a normal day, a normal thing? Is there increased strife? Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
strife is not the right word. It is a game. It is. It's a game to them, to us. All of it. Is you play the game and you must play it well. You play your part. You do what you're supposed to do, and you pretend to like someone, and the next day they wake up with a knife in their chest. It's just the nature of the game.
Doesn't sound like a very fun game.
Well, it's not. It's just the way things are.
Hmm. Well, I'll lift up my wine glass and say, "To happier days, then."
To happier days. Well, I believe I have kept you from the evening. I think I will retire to my room for the night. I appreciated your company, Mekleresh. And when she says the words Mekleresh, Garish,
Mm-hmm.
you hear the words. It's the same thing with the goblins, where you hear what they said, but in your head, the words kind of rattle and change. And you hear the phrase, she who leaves.
My chewing slows down, and I continue.
It has been a pleasure. And again, if there's anything I can do to help you in your pursuits, please let me know. I will be leaving the city soon, so my offer will only stand for as long as I am here.
Of course. Well, I'll see you around.
And she nods, and she stands up. And then she turns to Garish and gives him a small nod as well. Less so than to you.
I'll nod.
And then she goes to her room, down the hall.
Well, it's the first time I've ever talked to someone like that.
Well, isn't it the second time you've talked to her?
Well, I mean, just we had a very short conversation before. She didn't seem to like you very much at the start. I couldn't say why. Maybe it's the what you said about the women leading.
Would Garish be familiar at all?
You could make a. So you can make a history check with disadvantage to see how much you would know about the Underdark culture of Drow. You know that Drow are generally viewed as a race of people who are considered evil in the eyes of most of the world. But it's sort of a lawful evil where it is meticulous and cunning and cutthroat. And it's one of those things where you don't know enough about the culture to glean information, but that's just kind of the general vibe that you've gotten from any drow you run into. Most of the drow you've fought or fought alongside or met in your travels have been men. Occasionally, you've met drow women, but it is very few and far between drow women. And they seem to be more like high and mighty with the way they talk and the way they are. And they're not very inviting to you, but to women they're a lot more inviting towards.
Well, there aren't a lot of people like her up here.
Oh, well, I'm glad we got to know her, at least a little bit. But I don't know how much I want to learn from her. I just think I want to stick to my own path. I'll sort of pat my spell book.
You pat it and some pages fall out on the floor.
I'll just like scramble and pick them up and shove them back in. It's a very crummy looking spell book.
It looks
It's not
terrible.
meticulous. It's not meticulous at all. I'd be like, I really need to get a new one of these things. I've had this one since I was a child. What was your childhood like?
Yeah, not much to speak of.
Oh? Where did you grow up?
I lived with my mother from childhood. Became a mercenary after that.
Oh, what was your mom like?
I don't know how Garrett should answer this.
Would Garish answer this?
I had to refresher myself. At your question, Garish just kind of continues to chew through the hunk of lamb that he was served with some potatoes with some white gravy and some peas, and he just kind of is chewing and thinking to himself.
Can I roll insight to see if I know how awkward this is? Or is it pretty apparent that I asked a question that he doesn't want to answer?
I mean, you could make an insight check. All right, so I am, as the DM, asking Garish, and I will tailor the answer based on her role. If you could whisper me, if the hesitation is because you don't know what to say about it or are uncomfortable about it, could you whisper me what you're feeling at the moment?
I forget the command. Is it DM or GM?
GM. Looking at Garish, he looks lost for words more than anything. He's thinking to himself deeply, but he just, from what you can tell, he is uncertain.
I won't pry any further. I'll just can't talk about my family either. I'll just be like, I know what it means when you can't talk about your family. I'm just gonna look a little sad.
There's a harsh silence that comes over the table. the kind of high note from today's activities slowly wind down.
I'll make a couple more idle conversations, pointing out people who are doing funny things in the bar. Oh, look, that guy, he's so drunk. But no serious conversations
Mm.
until enough time has passed that, we've had our meals and drinks. And I'm just going to say, well, I think I might turn in for the evening. I'll go back to my room.
Sure. You retire back to your room.
And I'll play with my cat for a bit.
She's very into all of the scritches.
Hmm.
And Garish?
He's going to sit at the table a while longer.
Hmm. The bar patrons come in and out, and through your time sitting there, more drinks are brought to you. And the patrons slowly file out one by one, so there's only a handful of patrons left. The evening is definitely getting the light is getting a lot longer, and the sun has fully set, and you find yourself kind of hypnotized by the crackling embers of the fire that burn in the hearth. Occasionally the waitress goes over and blocks your view as she tosses over another log into the fire, keeping the entire building just warm and comforting. Anything the two of you would like to do before you retire for the evening?
I don't believe so. Check on my clothes, see how they're drying. Hopefully they're dry by morning.
So most of them are dry by the time you check on them, and you pull the ones that are on the hangers down and, add them to your pack. But eventually, the two of you find your way back to sleep. Some more restful than others. Head full of questions and things and small moments from the day that lead to more questions and answers. I think that's a good place to end our session for today.